Welcome. Today I have an incredible story for you. This is a true story. A story about a janitor who worked at a school. His name was Richard. Richard was 52 years old. He lived in a small town in South Carolina, USA. Every day, Richard woke up at 5 a.m. He drove to the high school and cleaned the building. He mopped floors, he emptied trash cans, he cleaned bathrooms. This was his life for 25 years. Wake up, drive to school, clean, go home, sleep, repeat. Richard was not unhappy, but he felt invisible. Nobody talked to him. Students walked past him. Teachers ignored him. To them, Richard was just the janitor, just the cleaning man, nothing more. Richard had never finished school. He dropped out at age 16. He needed to work to help his mother. His mother was sick. She needed money. So Richard quit school and started working. He worked many jobs: factory jobs, restaurant jobs, cleaning jobs. Finally, he became a janitor at the local high school. Richard loved books. He loved learning, even though he never finished school. Every day, Richard saw students with their books, going to classes, learning new things, and Richard felt sad. He wished he could learn too, but he was too old, too poor, too busy. At least that is what he thought. Richard had a secret nobody knew. Every night after work, Richard went to the library. He borrowed books and read them at home, alone. He read history books, science books, philosophy books. Richard taught himself everything he never learned in school. But Richard never told anyone. He was embarrassed that he never finished school, embarrassed that he was just a janitor. So he kept his secret and read alone. One day, something happened, something that changed everything. Richard was cleaning a classroom, the English classroom. It was after school. Everyone had gone home. Richard saw papers on the teacher's desk, student essays. Richard loved reading, so he started reading the essays. He read one essay, then another, then another. Richard was surprised, very surprised. The essays were bad, very bad. Poor grammar, poor spelling, poor ideas. These were 11th grade students, almost adults, but they wrote like children. Richard felt sad. These students are not learning, he thought. They need help. But Richard said nothing. He was just the janitor. Nobody would listen to him. The next day, Richard saw more essays, more bad writing. Day after day, week after week, Richard kept reading student work, and it kept being bad. Finally, Richard could not stay quiet. He had to do something. But what? Richard had an idea, a crazy idea. He would help the students. But how? He was just a janitor. Richard thought about it for many days. Then he made a decision. He would leave notes, anonymous notes, notes with writing tips, grammar rules, spelling corrections. Richard started writing notes on small pieces of paper. He left them in the classroom, on desks, on the board. Simple notes, like, remember, I before E except after C, or a sentence needs a subject and a verb, or check your spelling before submitting. At first, nothing happened. Students ignored the notes. Teachers did not notice. But Richard did not give up. He kept leaving notes. Every day, more notes, more tips, more encouragement. Slowly, things started to change. Students started reading the notes. They started talking about them. Who is writing these notes? They asked. Nobody knew. It was a mystery. The mystery janitor. Some students thought it was funny. Some thought it was helpful. Some thought it was annoying. But they all started paying attention to their writing, to their grammar, to their spelling. One teacher noticed the change, the English teacher. Her name was Mrs. Patterson. She saw the notes. She saw students improving. She was curious, very curious. Who was helping her students? Mrs. Patterson decided to find out. She stayed late one day after school, hiding in her classroom, waiting. She waited for 1 hour. Then she heard something. The door opened. Someone came in. It was Richard, the janitor. Mrs. Patterson watched. Richard walked to the desk. He read some student essays. Then he took out paper and started writing notes, helpful notes, kind notes. Mrs. Patterson couldn't believe it. The janitor? Was the janitor helping her students? Mrs. Patterson came out from her hiding place. Richard saw her. He froze. He was terrified, terrified of getting in trouble. Mrs. Patterson looked at Richard. She looked at the notes. Then she smiled. She said, "Have you been writing these notes?" Richard nodded. He could not speak. He thought he would be fired. Mrs. Patterson said, "These notes are wonderful. My students are improving because of you." Richard was shocked. He said, "I am sorry. I should not touch student work. I am just a janitor." Mrs. Patterson stopped him. She said, "Just a janitor? No, you are a teacher, a real teacher." Richard did not understand. Mrs. Patterson explained, "You care about these students. You want them to learn. You are helping them improve. That makes you a teacher." Mrs. Patterson had an idea. She asked Richard, "Would you like to help more, officially?" Richard was confused. "How?" he asked. Mrs. Patterson said, "Come to my class during your break. Help students with their writing." Richard was scared, very scared. He said, "But I never finished school. I have no degree, no training." Mrs. Patterson said, "You have something better. You know, and you have a heart. That is enough." Richard agreed. He would try. The next day, Mrs. Patterson told her class, "We have a new writing tutor. His name is Richard. He will help you improve." The students were surprised. The janitor? They thought, but they were curious. Richard came to the class during his lunch break. He sat with students and helped them write. At first, students were shy, awkward, but Richard was patient, kind. He explained things simply, clearly. He did not judge, he just helped. Slowly, students started trusting Richard. They asked him questions about grammar, about writing, about books. Richard answered everything, with patience, with wisdom. Word spread. More students came, students from other classes. They wanted Richard's help. Richard started coming every day to help students. He still did his janitor job, but now he also taught, unofficially, without pay, just because he wanted to help. The students loved Richard. They called him Mr. Richard, not the janitor, Mr. Richard, the teacher. Richard felt happy. For the first time in years, he felt valued, respected, important. One day, a student asked Richard, "Mr. Richard, why do you know so much? You never went to college, right?" Richard smiled. He said, "You do not need a college to learn. You need curiosity. You need books. You need effort. I read every night for 30 years. I taught myself." The students were amazed. "You taught yourself?" one student said. "That's incredible." Another student said, "You are my hero." Richard felt embarrassed, but also proud. Proud of what he accomplished through reading, through effort, through never giving up on learning. The school principal heard about Richard. Her name was Dr. Martinez. She called Richard to her office. Richard was nervous, very nervous. Was he in trouble? Dr. Martinez smiled. She said, "Richard, I heard what you are doing, helping students, for free, on your own time. That is remarkable." Richard said, "I just want to help." Dr. Martinez said, "I want to hire you as a teaching assistant, officially." Richard couldn't believe it. A teaching assistant? "But I have no degree," he said. Dr. Martinez said, "We'll work around that. We need people like you, people who care, people who inspire. Will you accept?" Richard said yes, of course yes. Richard became an official teaching assistant. He still cleaned, part-time, but now he also taught, part-time. He helped students with writing, with reading, with homework.
Richard was finally doing what he loved, teaching, learning, helping. Years passed. Richard helped hundreds of students. Many students went to college because of Richard's help. They came back to thank him. They said, "Mr. Richard, you changed my life. You taught me to love learning. You showed me I could succeed." Richard always said the same thing. "I didn't do anything special. You did the work. I just believed in you." But Richard was wrong. He did do something special. He saw students, really saw them. He believed in them when nobody else did. He gave his time, his knowledge, his heart. That was special, very special. Richard retired at age 70 after 18 years of teaching. The school threw him a party, a big party. Hundreds of students